Archie paid too high a price. Harry and Meghan's ruthless rivalry with Palace had painful consequences for the kid. The biggest victim of the latest race row to engulf the royal family is Prince Archie, who will pay a high price for his parents' very public feud with the palace. Hello everyone, welcome back to the King YouTube channel. Alright, so just for this episode, we're going to assume that Prince Archie is a real person and not a doll. You know I'm still not convinced, but anyway, just for the sake of argument, let's assume that he is real. So what do you think would be written on his water bottle? When his parents, Harry and Meghan, ordered those sticky name tapes that get put on every single item that's shipped on a daily basis into preschools by loving parents, did they choose to go for plain old Archie? Or did they just so happen to include his title? Could there be a Mountbatten Windsor thrown in for good measure? We've all heard of identity politics, haven't we? Well, royal identity politics is a whole different game. Now, usually not a lot gets written about the invisible young prince, but this week, Archie has accidentally played a very important role in one of the biggest crises that is hitting Buckingham Palace. According to a new book, his grandfather King Charles and his aunt Catherine, the Princess of Wales, reportedly are the previously unspecified members of the royal family who raised what Meghan considered to be concerns and conversations about his skin color before he was even born. And every day this week, the situation has gotten more ridiculous. From the book in question, Omid Scobie's Endgame, going from being a nasty, bothersome nuisance to resuscitating the row over race that has been quietly simmering away now for years, to, all thanks to the Dutch translation, identifying Charles and Catherine as the culprits who expressed these concerns. Now, at the time that I'm doing this video, we don't really know much. It's all a case of what Scobie says versus what the palace says, which is absolutely nothing. Interestingly enough, Meghan and Harry, who usually love to speak up on anything and everything, are not sharing their opinion on this matter. For the time being, at least, let's not think about what's going to happen in the next few days and whether or not Meghan and Harry should be stripped of their Sussex titles. We need to forget about the way people might be feeling behind the doors of Clarence House and Adelaide Cottage, and we also don't need to worry about those loyal courtiers who were stressing out figuring out a way to respond. We often hear from politicians, won't someone think of the children? Well, as this mess overtakes the palace and also Montecito, won't somebody think of that little invisible prince and invisible princess? What chance could there have been of Archie particularly, but also Lilibet forming some kind of real connection with their British family? I mean, if there ever was a chance, this week it looks like that chance has dropped to zero. How much more difficult is it going to be for Charles to ever really get to know those grandchildren, now that Archie one day is going to find out that according to his mother, his grandfather had concerns about what his skin color would look like while he was still in the womb? The situation was already hard enough. November marked 4 years since an infant Archie flew the 10 hours from UK to Vancouver Island with Meghan and Harry. It was there that Archie got his first taste of living in a North American-style McMansion. Since then, Archofficial has spent a grand total of 4 days back in the UK, supposedly, which also just so happens to be the entire amount of time that his little sister has spent back in England. By all accounts, William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales' 3 young kids, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, have only met Archie a few times, if at all, and reportedly they have never even set eyes on Lilibet. For 4 whole days during the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations last year, the King's 5 grandkids were all staying about 650 meters away from each other on the Windsor estate. But did anybody think to arrange a playdate? Did their parents or any aides or whoever make it a priority for the cousins to spend some time together? Well, if they did, the public sure didn't hear a thing about it, and I'm pretty sure we didn't. We gotta wait and see what the short and medium-term repercussions of Endgame's naming of Charles and Catherine, and Meghan and Harry's so far amazing silence may be. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the longer-term picture. A longer-term picture where it is these children, and particularly Archofficial and Invisibet, who are going to end up paying a very high price. It is a sad situation. I mean, assuming they're real, these children are growing up without knowing either of their grandfathers. One of them has been cut out of their lives completely by the mother because supposedly he gave parts of a letter to the Daily Mail and supposedly he staged paparazzi photos for money. And the other has ended up on the opposing side of the bust-up of Makes-It. And currently it doesn't look like that's ever going to change. It is really difficult to see a future where Archie and Lilibet are going to have any kind of real relationship with their British family. In November, the Times reported that Harry and Meghan would not decline an invitation to spend time with His Majesty over Christmas. It looked like they were testing the waters, and that was met with absolutely not from the palace. And we understand completely why His Majesty doesn't want to spend time with Harry and Meghan. In fact, I would find it a lot more shocking if he did want to spend time with them. The king is not interested in helping them incidentally create new Netflix content. We understand why he wouldn't want to spend this festive season sitting with a couple of people who basically made money by calling him an a-hole. But what about the invisible Sussex children? Well, Archie has certainly never spent the Christmas season with his grandfather. He has never gotten to participate in the very Teutonic celebrations that the Windsors love to this day. The point is, in all of the mess and the interviews and the tears and the blaming and the money and the senior palace sources popping up to whisper some sweet nothings into the media's ears, the people I do feel sorry for are the ones who are children, who are truly innocent in this whole giant mess. You don't really have to be a big fan of either the Sussexes or the Wales family to see that the parents are the ones who got their children into this mess. The children are not to blame. And there's also the bigger question of what this estrangement could mean down the road when these children are finally adults. Most likely in the future at some point, the people of the UK are going to get to see George and probably Charlotte and Louis as well, dutifully suiting up on a daily basis to fly the flag for king and country, the three of them, by that stage, the only working members of the royal family other than maybe their parents left. Yeah, three of them, that's it. Everything, all that responsibility is going to rest on the three of them. I mean, just imagine that immense workload, the pressure that's going to be brought to bear here, even to simply fulfill the basic requirements of a constitutional monarchy. It's too much for only three people. And then what's going to be happening over in the grand old US of A? After having grown up in the shadow of the Stars and Stripes and Oprah showing up to have some supper, Archie and Lilibet are going to be grown people with titles that connect them to the monarchy, but they won't have any real connection to the crown. And the duality of these opposing identities is going to be difficult for the children to deal with down the road. Now, for sure, it will be a very special position that they hold. They're going to be a couple of members of the British royal family who were brought up in America. Very unique in Hollywood, actually, so they'll probably get a lifetime of endorsement deals and TV hosting gigs. They'll probably get to do as many toothpaste commercials as they could ever want. And even though they won't know their British family, their marriages, their actions, their business dealings are all going to reflect back on the firm, a kind of reputational ricochet effect. Maybe after the way their father and mother have acted all those years, they'll actually want to live private lives. Maybe they'll go live somewhere like in Montana, where nobody's going to bother them. There are already so many obstacles to Archie and Lilibet ever getting to know their British family, and it looks like we can add Endgame's stunt of revealing the names of the so-called races to that pile. How is it going to feel for the invisible prince at some point in the future to know that his mother believes his own grandfather and aunt were expressing unconscious bias towards him before he had ever even entered the world? So have this week's events just made things a lot worse? Has this Endgame debacle ensured this schism is going to continue to blight the next generation? Or to use another adage, they do say it takes a village to raise a child. But in the case of Harry and Meghan, it's not going to be a village anywhere near London. And you, what do you think about this news? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. If you think my video is useful, don't be afraid to like and share it with anybody else who would enjoy it anytime you want. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.